This is a dude that Kansas State fans should be really, really fired up to get. And I'm going to say it because I'm sitting in Texas. I can't believe this dude's leaving Texas, right? So this is a steal for Kansas State. I know Kansas State coaches probably don't want me to say that, but I can't believe this dude's leaving the state borders. I mean, this is a tremendous get for Kansas State.
Hello and welcome to the Verbal Commitment Podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Kevin Flaherty. I'm here, as always, with my good friend Ryan Wallace. And we're talking about the world of local recruiting from Kansas and Kansas City prospects to the college classes at Kansas, Kansas State, and Missouri. This past Friday, we saw Mill Valley's victory over Lawrence, and afterward, we had a chance to talk to Mill Valley star and Kansas State commitment Lamarcus Barber. And stay tuned for an interview with Dave Campbell's Texas Football's Greg Powers, who will help us break down the Texans who are committed to Kansas and Kansas State. There's a little bit of a hint. There's a bushel full of them. If you like what you're hearing, comment below, tell your friends about us, subscribe, hit that like button, or leave us a review, a 5-star rating, wherever you get your podcasts like Apple or Spotify. We have our own specific audio channel through KCSN on Apple and Spotify, so you can seek us out there. As always, we appreciate you guys helping us to grow and getting us in front of more people like you. We'll see if the alarm is working this week, Ryan.
Your old tap.
Oh, there it is. All right. And because that means one of the local Power 4 schools has landed a commitment. In this case, Missouri brings in the Tigers' second in September in South Pike, Mississippi Edge, Micah Nickerson, a 4-star player in the industry-generated 24/7 Sports Composite. Ryan, what are the Tigers getting here?
Yeah, so I'm very curious to see kind of how Missouri wants to use him. I mean, obviously he's listed as an edge. Seems like that's how he was recruited at Missouri, and yet I found myself more compelled with some of his offensive tape in 7-on-7. And maybe, again, it's because he's 6'5" and he's 215. But again, if the case is him sticking on defense, you get to see, I mean, if you're that level of an athlete, being able to play 7-on-7 and then transitioning to the defensive line, I think that bodes well athletically in the SEC. Obviously, getting his weight up, getting him a little bit more stronger, able to do things against the run. Obviously, that'll be a focus. But the good news is, as we saw last week with Missouri's commitment class, the way that they've kind of stockpiled on the defensive line, in a day and age when you don't want to spend a lot of time developing, Missouri, at least when it comes to defensive ends, has a pretty good stockpile, and I think has shown a pedigree and a resume so far over the last couple of years where if you are a player like this, where you are flipping from Mississippi State and you are psyched to put on a Missouri uniform, which it sounds like this young man is, he's formerly from Hickman, and dad still lives in the Columbia area. So again, very prideful about Mizzou. I think they're willing, he's going to be willing to put in a little bit of effort, maybe wait a year or two, and then get himself on the field.
Nickerson is the second Missouri defensive line commitment in the last week, and the Tigers' 12th overall commitment in that 2026 class. 24/7 Sports came out with its updated top 247 for the class of 2027, with 3 local players making the cut. Kyler Kuhn at St. Pius ranks as the number 2 player in Missouri and at number 198 overall, while on the Kansas side, Great Bend athlete Cooper Omocht and Hayes center Gus Corsair continued to have a razor-thin margin between them. Nationally, Omocht sits at 241, while Corsair is just 5 spots down nationally at 246.
Yeah, I was interested to see, Kyler Kuhn get knocked down a little bit. I believe he was the number 1 player at one point in the state of Missouri, and he's still just fine at number 2. He's number 1 in our books here at KCSN when it comes to KCMO. I guess maybe the biggest takeaway for me came in the rearranging of and maybe addition of some players that were outside the top 247, because again, the rankings focus on the guys that are top 250. So all the names that you just mentioned. But I thought it was interesting seeing a guy like Brody Fonensteel getting rated, and he's now the number 3 player in the state of Kansas out at Hoisington, seeing a guy like Elijah Shaw get a rating now as the number 4 rated player, according to 247 Sports. Large offensive tackle from Blue Valley North. We've talked about him on the show before. Aiden Shaw's younger brother, former 4 or 5-star Missouri basketball commitment that is now at Boston College. But nevertheless, that's kind of what's more compelling. I will say, I'm not surprised that it's easy to kind of dock the Kansas guys, right? When there are folks that are doing the rankings that aren't able to get out and see these players in the Midlands region. That's why you and I are here, to give them a little bit of a spotlight. So I'm not necessarily surprised, but I do think the way that Hayes is playing, the way that Gus Corsair is playing specifically for that Hayes team, the way that Cooper Omat is playing on a Great Bend team that's doing really well, and you think about the weightlifting that Gus Corsair is going to have to go along with it. You think about the athletic profile that Cooper Omat continues to put out each and every offseason. They may be easy to bump or downgrade a little bit come football season, but I think the more camps, certainly for Cooper, all these track and field events that he's going to do this spring, there's going to be a real shot and a real likelihood, I would say, that he's going to continue to move up the ladder.
In a real quick news hit, OU Insider's Parker Thune wrote a terrific article on former Hayes star Jiren Kanek, who's having a big start to the season at Oklahoma after switching over to tight end. He talked with both Ryan and I for that article, so go and check that one out. And without further ado, let's get into our Tacos for Life Player of the Week. Tacos for Life has a wide variety of options to choose from in their fresh scratch kitchen and locations in 8 states, including right here in Kansas in Overland Park, with catering and food truck options available as well. And for those parents like Ryan, make sure to take your kids in to dine for the $1.99 kids meal after 4 o'clock. And for every taco, rice bowl, salad, quesadilla, or nachos that you enjoy, a meal is donated to Feed My Starving Children on a meal-for-meal basis. Those meals are then shipped to more than 90 countries, to feeding centers, care points, orphanages, schools, and refugee camps. The Overland Park location has given out more than 736,000 meals over 3 years, while Tacos for Life as a whole has donated nearly 43 million meals. It's a great cause, and you can help just by doing what we all know and love, chowing down on some great tacos. Every week, we'll pick a Tacos for Life Metro Player of the Week. This week's honor belongs to University Academy's Caleb Barber. The Griffins have ripped off a 4-game winning streak, and Barber is the defensive captain for a squad that's allowed 6 points total over that 4-game stretch and just 19 points all season. Ryan, what have you seen from Barber this year?
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out. I mean, this defense has been nasty, and he's been the quarterback of it, manning the middle, 3 shutouts over, those 5 games. And like you said, 19 total points allowed. This is a guy who, again, peeling back the curtain a little bit, the coaching staff's been raving about Caleb Barber to us and to anybody that's willing to listen for a long time. And I think when you have the support of your coaching staff as a high school player, where they're willing to go out there and take time out of their days to try and get you recruited, right? Beyond what you're able to put out there yourself and emails and all that sort of stuff. I think that just goes to show the character that Caleb Barber carries on and off the field. This is a kid that they're rooting for, and he's an easy kid to root for. I would slap Team Fun tape on this highlight reel from Caleb Barber. He is a stalker, man. He hunts his prey. I think he's got real strong recognition of the game, just watching how he diagnoses plays. And like I said, the way that he can kind of sniff some things out, look at him stalking here, and then bam, very passionate, tireless, like constantly on the field. It's interesting. He's undersized. We love to use the term sawed off. He is like a London Fletcher clone when you watch him on tape. Calvin Johnson said one of the hardest hits he ever took in the NFL was from London Fletcher, like all 5'9" of him. And I found it interesting, Kevin, that if you go on Wikipedia, London Fletcher's nickname, at least when he was a young child, his family called him Bam because he hit glass tables with a hammer as a child. And so you see Caleb Barber, a little undersized, carrying the sledgehammer out onto the field. I think this is Caleb Bam Barber, because every time you see him make a hit, man, it's just bam. I feel like I'm watching, Step Brothers with Rob Riggle, just pow, pow. I mean, that Caleb Barber is a guy that brings it each and every week, and it's been fun to watch him in this UA Griffins defense at the co-op really just be as strong a unit as we've seen in the Metro so far in 2025.
And here is our Tacos for Life Metro Player of the Week. Caleb, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Caleb, you guys have pitched 3 shutouts in your last 4 games, including your last game against Pembroke Hill. What's been the key to your guys' defensive success so far?
Just really our key on defense is really we need everybody to the ball. That's what we preach in practice. We've shown it in the game multiple times. So just everybody to the ball, and that's how we get those shutouts.
I noticed in some of your photos, and I talked about it earlier on the show, you kind of run out on the field with this sledgehammer that you carry, right?
Yes.
Describe the meaning behind that and what that means to, University Academy, the sledgehammer.
Well, really, it's in the linebacker group a little bit. I mean, we see the gate open, the hole open, you got to close it. I mean, you got to be the hammer, not the nail. That's just really our slogan, man. Just be the hammer, not the nail. Just bring it every time.
We have a saying here that a player is, quote, team fun tape, unquote, when they have film that we really enjoy watching. And Ryan actually used that designation to describe you just a minute ago. You definitely qualify with the way that you hit guys. So I have to ask you, what are you thinking when you're sizing up somebody coming into your area, whether they're catching a pass or whether they're coming through your hole?
Really I just want to get you down as fast as possible. I love the contact. Linebacker, I know it's a very physical position. It's just really I got to get the ball, got to get the player. We got to win the game.
Caleb, if you could narrow it down to like one trait, one thing, if you had younger kids that were coming up that said, I want to play inside linebacker, what's kind of like the one trait that you feel like if you want to play my position, this is one thing you've got to excel at?
You got to have great eyes. That's number one important thing. Well, first, the guards is always going to take you to the ball, but sometimes, they could do tosses, end arounds. I mean, you always got to have good eyes. That's the number one thing.
The other thing that stands out about you is your motor. Like, there are multiple plays where maybe you're chasing a little bit and there's a pass downfield or something. You run down the guy from behind. Where's that motor come from?
Practice. I mean, I just love practicing how I play. You can ask the peers around me, my coaches. That's just how I practice. That's always been within me. It's never gonna stop. I just love it.
4-1 right now, on pace for the most wins since 2022, your freshman season. I know Coach Blakemore, shout out Chiefs Coach of the Week this week as well.
Yes.
I know he's probably preaching to you guys 1 week at a time, but I noticed on the schedule, you haven't beaten St. Michael, haven't beaten Van Horn in your career at UA. How pumped are you for those 2 particular matchups coming up?
Really, I'm really pumped about it. Like Pembroke, it was rough with Pembroke. Beat them our freshman year, hasn't won since then. That was just a really big game for us, but those big matchups, I just really can't wait for it. I want everything to come. I feel like I'm very confident in my team and everybody around me that we will win those games.
Caleb, is there somebody that I don't want to say model your game after, but is there somebody you like watching or like studying and you say, hey, I'd like to do some things, that those guys do?
Fred Warner. I'm always watching him. He's a very versatile guy, like getting the pass, stop the run. You see the motor he has. I just kind of model after him a little bit.
I'm a Seahawks guy, so I mean this respectfully. I hate Fred Warner because he is so good. Caleb, I want to finish with this one for you. I love giving this platform to our players of the week. You have some college offers already on the table, but for any coaches out there that are just turning your tape on or coaches that know about you but maybe haven't offered yet, here's your chance. Give them your recruiting pitch. Why should they come after Caleb Barber?
They should come after me because I will change the program around. You will see a big difference as soon as I step on the field. I'm gonna bring guys up, cheer guys up every time. We will win games. I mean, that's the most certain thing. We will win games. That's it. That's all I can say.
Well, Caleb, as our Player of the Week, we'll be sending you and all our future Tacos for Life Metro Player of the Week picks a gift card to enjoy the food at Tacos for Life.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
We'll be right back on the Verbal Commitment Podcast right after this.
My name is Terrell Jolly. A lot of people call me TJ, founder and CEO of Integrity Capital Management. So Integrity Capital Management originally started out as a property management firm, but we slowly transitioned into what is described as an incremental development firm that's focused on situational housing. I know most people say affordable, but we believe in creating housing for people that are actually in need and built to the end user. I believe everyone needs a home because when you have home, you have hope. The reality is that when you're building a business, one thing you don't think about is like what a true banking relationship means. And, I had the honor and privilege of meeting Debbie early on in my career when I was just trying to get going. And as a small business, it's really challenging at times because people don't understand the concept or not believe the longevity because you're just getting started. But Debbie was willing to take a chance on me, be patient with me. I almost look at it like a grassroots initiative. She's seen and believe what I'm about. Anybody that's really true about their business and want to get some things done, I would definitely trust hands down Emprise, because Deb's team, along with Aaron and Jackie and all the amazing people that work behind the scenes, even from the treasury side, I would say, hey, give them an opportunity, because you won't be disappointed and you will actually be in hands that actually somebody care and that will see you from start to finish.
Welcome back to the Verbal Commitment Podcast. You can follow along with us on Twitter/X at verbalcommit_KC for clips from the show, conversations about local players, and even the odd highlight. And calling all Chiefs fans, you could be on the field at the 50 inside GEHA Field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. Visit chiefs.com/GEHA now. Enter to win a chance to be on the field for a once-in-a-lifetime view of the pregame coin toss. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Enter for a chance to win at chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is the proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. On Friday, Ryan and I went west to Lawrence High and saw Mill Valley leave with a 42-21 victory over the Chesty Lions. Ryan, this game gave us a chance to see Mill Valley's Lamarcus Barber, a Kansas State commit, go against Lawrence's Josh Galbraith, a Kansas commit, and they went head-to-head pretty often.
Yeah, I mean, the intensity picked up quite a bit. The folks that, we want the KU guys to not like the K-State guys, and we want the K-State guys to not like the KU guys. We kind of got a little taste of that already with these two. Here's the thing, though, Kevin, is I thought they both delivered. I thought that, Josh Galbraith, again, another tough matchup. We saw him against Gardner last year. It's a tough assignment as a Mike linebacker. Now you get Mill Valley, another tough assignment. But, man, he is just tenacious, and he's very passionate. And I think sometimes that passion can kind of get, if you don't know everything that I think Josh has been through at Lawrence, right? Like, he wants to win so badly. We got to see him be more vocal, I thought, in this game, which was a great sign, because I think naturally he's a little bit more humble and soft-spoken. He was very outward in this game. I liked everything that I saw out of Josh Galbraith. And then I thought Lamarcus Barber, delivered on everything that you were kind of teeing up for me. Like, he has gotten more agile. He's gotten more athletic. He's, I think, just as big, but I think he's carrying his body better. I would say there's less bad weight this year. He just looks overall better, and I would say ready to compete quicker than I maybe anticipated for when he gets to Manhattan.
For a guy that big, he's a really smooth athlete.
Yes.
That he moves and is a guy that, honestly, Ryan, I think he'd fit anywhere, but certainly would seem to fit really well at Kansas State in that offensive line group.
No doubt.
Barber may be the highest recruited of Mill Valley seniors, but he's definitely not the only talented one. We talked at the game about Hayden Heller having a really strong run of play. I think the second and third quarters, he had several plays, kind of in a row that were really strong. And Blake Jay just continues to impress.
Dude, Blake Jay is he's a guy. Again, this has been a Team Fun Tape kind of episode. I don't have tape of him, but this is me encouraging everybody to go to Huddle and turn on the tape. He is electric. As much as I would like to see what he can do more as a defensive back or potentially as a wide receiver and a guy that maybe could do some jet sweeps and things, I think even as a quarterback and a predominantly running quarterback, you get to see tastes and bits and pieces of just how freaking athletic this kid is. And so then when you think about, I think, how quickly he would pick up another position because he is so versatile, and if you're allowing him some time to maybe learn some of the nuances of that position, I think I'm going out on a limb here a little bit, but maybe not that much for those of us that have seen him. He probably is one of the best kept secrets, if you want to call it a secret, still available on the 2026 market in the Metro.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Looking at the 2027s really quick, with Reggie Reese being out for the game, Max Piva did a really nice job leading that Mill Valley running game. We talked during the game, pad level was a little high. He lowered it at the end of the game and was running through some guys to kind of help close that thing out for the Jaguars.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things about his running style. Like, I mean, Draven Colvin last year at Staley, when we saw him, there's a tendency sometimes for him to get a little bit high, but at the same time, like, they're willing to take the brunt of it. And a lot of times they don't seem to be too shaken up. So if it works, it works. They're tough as nails. I mean, Piva's tough as nails to bring down. I mean, I can't imagine when Reggie Reese is healthy and you can ping pong back and forth between Piva and Reese. That's a nasty combination. But in terms of the purposes of our show, prospects, recruiting profiles, I know Mill Valley doesn't need him on that side of the ball, but I would love to see what Max Piva can do at linebacker. Just like we said about Draven Colvin, it seems like that's kind of where his college trajectories could take him. I think Max Piva would be a lights out linebacker when given some time to maybe transition to that side of the field. Excuse me.
This Friday, we'll be back on the Missouri side as Blue Springs South travels to Lee Summit North. Ryan, we had one Broncos 2027 on our show already in Josiah Robinson, but let's talk about another one. I know you're really high on Lee Summit North linebacker Caleb Green.
Yeah, I mean, first off, this is a ticket right here, Kevin. Why do I get the feeling that we are going to be far from the only people that will be attending this game? And we will have so many different players that we need to touch on come next week. I would anticipate that will be a loaded show. But you talked about 2027 at Lee Summit North, and I'm thinking Caleb Green here. Like, he is off to a rampant start as a junior. And you see on tape, I just think that the game is slowing down for him so much. I think Elijah Lee, getting him and working with him specifically as the defensive coordinator, as the linebackers coach, you're seeing a lot of what Elijah did so well starting to rub off on Caleb. Obviously, comes from a good background. Big brother Caden Green, starting tackle at Missouri. Younger brother Caleb, a little bit shorter, but still every bit the athlete. Every bit the tenacious guy around the football. And like I said, he's making play after play. He's leaner and meaner this year. He will present some problems for a Blue Springs South offensive line that you and I really like. They'll have their work cut out for him when Caleb Green sees ball and decides he wants to get ball.
On the other side, we went over to Blue Springs South's Media Day before the season started. And one guy that we left really impressed with, but who's had maybe an even bigger start to the season than we would have thought, is 2027 pass rusher Prince Goldsby.
Yeah, a kid that we saw at Media Day, like you said, wasn't really in pads. I mean, did some things at practice and stood out, right? But even since then, you're starting to talk to some coaches and players that have already played South, and they're like, yeah, that Goldsby kid's going to be a dude. And so finally being able to see some of him on tape through these first 5 weeks on the Missouri side, like, he is very long. You see how easily he moves. I've just really been impressed with how well he's playing that position. He's not just a guy that's constantly pass rush like that, where they're sending him on blitzes. I think you're seeing him, address situations and then come up and make plays appropriately, like you saw there against Ray-Pack and Dezeffin Walker. You see it again here, how he's holding the edge. Really, really impressed with what I've seen so far from Prince Goldsby. We will be keeping a very close eye on him on Friday night, specifically a matchup between two juniors that I think is very, very, very compelling, which is Prince Goldsby on the defensive line for Blue Springs South and Ace Herman Dawson, a Lee Summit North guard, but a guard that they're going to pull an awful lot. If these two happen to meet when Ace Herman Dawson pulls and there's Prince Goldsby on the edge, look out. It's going to be a fun collision.
After watching Mill Valley defeat Lawrence, we talked with Kansas State commitment Lamarcus Barber, with the talented offensive lineman, talking about how he's gotten better this past offseason and what it meant when the Wildcats came calling. Lamarcus, take us into the break. All right, Lamarcus, good win for you guys. Moved to 3-1. What did you like about tonight's performance?
I feel like we dominated up front. I mean, it was weird in the beginning, but I feel like we did our jobs. I mean, the score will tell you we did our jobs. So,
you feel like you've raised your game another level or two from where you were at a year ago.
Yeah.
How do you think you've gotten better in the last year or so?
I feel like I've gotten bigger. I feel like I got a little faster. I feel like stronger. I mean, I'm still doing this. I'm being better from like junior Lamarcus. Would be surprised how good the senior Lamarcus is.
I was going to say, did you see this for yourself like a year ago? Did you see yourself getting to this point?
I felt like I was doing good, but I never knew I was going to be one of the greatest players in Kansas. So.
Speaking of which, when Kansas State stepped up with the offer and they said, hey, you're our guy, we love you, and you wound up committing to K-State,
Yep.
What did that mean to you?
I felt great. I mean, they're not like they always talked to me. They showed that they wanted me, so I mean, I wanted to show that love back by committing.
What did they like about you?
Physical, fast. I was like my whole highlight reel from last year is just blowing up people. So.
Doesn't hurt that you have a former teammate over there as well. You talked to Gus a little bit about it?
Yeah, I talked to Gus a little bit. You know, he's busy. But I'm about to be there in, I think it's like 116 days. So I'm about to be there, so.
So you keep like a countdown on how many more days until you get up there?
I seen the email, so I was like, yeah.
With the transition from Coach Riley to Coach LePack, did that have any effect on your recruitment at all? And tell us a little bit about the differences between those two guys.
Like the recruitment part, I feel like there's nothing changed. They wanted me, no matter what, who the coach was. The difference is I feel like Coach Riley was like louder. He was like one of those like old, like, you know, like, I don't know how to explain it, but he was like louder. He'd tell you when you're doing something wrong. LePack's more thoughtful. Like he's more like logical. I feel like he's a really smart guy, so he can break down plays really easily.
How tight is this commitment class for K-State, and are there any guys that you've kind of started to connect a friendship with?
I feel like we're all tight. We haven't really talked like a lot, but I think there's a couple commits coming this game tomorrow, so I should be able to talk to them.
What excites you about your fit in their scheme? Is there something that you like about their offense that you just feel like you fit seamlessly in?
I'm not sure. I feel like, I'm gonna go there in the January, and I'm just gonna try to do my best to play. So I feel like I fit in. I fit in perfectly. I feel like.
We talked to Coach Gomez a lot. What's the biggest thing that he's been trying to work with you on to get you ready for January?
We film breakdown, then recover. That's what we've been doing. And then we're gonna start doing stuff Sunday. We're gonna start doing more movement stuff because there's not a lot. There's little microscopic things I need to fix. But other than that, we haven't film breakdown. He's really good coach. Helps me out. He helped me with all my craft.
How much do you like the fact that Mill Valley wears the target, and now you being the big prospect wear the target on your back every Friday night? Is that something that you and Mill Valley embrace?
Yeah, I love the contact. If people want to play hard, I'll play harder. So it's like, I love that.
And then you mentioned that you'll be up at K-State. Are you at just about every home game? How often do K-State fans can they see you up there on campus between now and January? As many times as you can make it?
Yeah, many times.
Absolutely. Last but not least, what's your prediction on the K-State season this year before you get up there? Any predictions?
Before I get there?
Yeah.
We're going to win every single game by 50. And then we're going to make it to the playoffs and win the Natty.
What's up, guys? I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network, and I'm here to talk to Kansas City businesses. If you rely on technology, you need an IT support team that's not just another vendor, but a true IT partner. That's why I want to introduce you to my friend and neighbor, KJ Miller. He is a VCIO at ThrottleNet, the Midwest's highest rated and most reviewed IT support company. They've been in business for more than 25 years, helping companies stay secure, productive, and ahead of the curve. They aren't just IT support, but they provide data security, IT strategy, and cloud software services. They do it all, and their reviews show they do it better than anyone else. So if you want to hear about how ThrottleNet can help your local business, join the conversation with myself, KJ Miller from ThrottleNet, and our resident genius from KC Sports Network when it comes to IT, at least as he's affectionately known by us, Mr. Craig Stout. Click the link in the description to hear how ThrottleNet can help you.
This is the Verbal Commitment Podcast, and we're here with Greg Powers, the Director of Recruiting at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We've both known Greg a long time. I worked with Greg at Scout.com, and both Ryan and I worked with him at 24/7 Sports. And Greg has one of the best scouting eyes of anyone that we've ever worked with. So, Greg, welcome to the show.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that compliment. It's a lot of fun covering these players over the years, and you talk about the Scout.com days, and we're dating ourselves a little bit, but I think we've both been in the game, or all of us have been in the game going on 20 years now. So we've seen a lot of players.
Greg, for those who maybe don't live down in Texas, they might not realize how big of a deal Dave Campbell's Texas Football is. In the Lone Star State, if somebody asks you if you've got your Bible, it means one of two things. They're asking you if you've got the good book or if you've got the magazine, depending on the context. But for our viewers, can you give us a little bit of your background as well? Because you've covered Texas a long time, but you've also covered up here. You have some recruiting background in our area as well.
Well, I cut my teeth up in the Midwest, actually. I'm not from Texas. I'm from Ohio. So a lot of the stuff that I learned about Dave Campbell's Texas Football was, throughout the journey of covering some of these top players across the country. And back in 2004, I came to a game down here. It was between Plano and Campbell. And I walked out on the field and saw the teams. And I went home and I told my wife, we're moving to Texas. I mean, it was just different. And I knew about Dave Campbell's Texas Football, of course, because I'm a football fan and it was such a big deal. That was probably the marquee magazine, but it started in 1960. And they published a magazine every year since 1960 up until now. And part of what I do there is, the book is this big and I'm responsible for a section about this big, but I get to select the super team members every year. And of course, we've started to carve out more of a digital footprint behind streaming. We stream, probably around 60 Texas high school football games every weekend. And of course, covering high school football and recruiting on the website as well, texasfootball.com, to create all the profiles and all that kind of stuff, just like you would see, or what I used to do back in the Scout.com and 24/7 Sports days.
So, Greg, another reason why I think it's so important to have you on our show at this point of the season is not only have you been able to see a bunch of these kids that are now committed to KU and K-State in the offseason, but now we're kind of at that mid-season form. And so, you can really start to put an eye and a proper eval, so to speak, on there's 6 from K-State, 2 from KU. Let's start with K-State, just because this is tied for the most Texans that Chris Kleiman has had in his tenure there since 2020. That was the Deuce Vaughn class. I guess let's start with just maybe how this class came together. Is it as simple, do you think, in your estimation, as Matt Wells and Luke Wells being on a staff? Granted, they're Oklahoma guys, but having them entrenched back in Texas again, because there are a number of guys, at least of these 6, that are kind of more West Texas guys, or at least outside of the DFW Metroplex.
Well, what I think Kansas State does a really good job of is evaluating talent. We were doing a live podcast yesterday, and Kansas State had dropped and the name escapes me now, but Kansas State had dropped an offer on somebody, and my co-recruiting analyst over at DCTX, I looked at her and I said, you know what, Kansas State offers somebody, I pay attention to it, because they do a really good job of recruiting football playing dudes. And I think because of the Big 12 and coming down here to play a lot of these teams in Texas, Kansas State's always going to have a heavy presence in the state and be able to put a lot of guys on that roster to round it out. And for the first time in my life, I just published a top 500 recruits. And it's a pretty extensive list, but that kind of gives you an idea of the type of talent here. Now, Texas isn't going to sign 500 FBS prospects in a class, but all of those prospects have at least an FBS grade where
Yep.
if a college was going to go by that school, I would recommend them to take a look at this player, right? They need to take a look at this player because he rates high enough that if it's a right scheme fit, that he may fit there. And there's always going to be steals because of that, right? You know, you're seeing Texas A&M, even Texas Tech taking a smaller amount of guys in every class. You know, it used to always be 23, 25 guys, but in the new era of college football, you're 15 to 17 is on the high end, I feel like, for, you know, your high school signing class a lot of the times. So they're going to be guys who slip through the cracks, and I call them football playing dudes. Kansas State recruits a lot of football playing dudes. Now, whether that leads to wins on the field, that's up to the coaches once they get there. But there isn't anybody I look at on this commitment list from Kansas State that I don't think is a dude that can play ball.
Staying on that topic, but getting off the topic of KU and K-State really quick. Who else do you really look at when a college comes in and offers a guy from Texas where you're like, better re-put that guy's film? I know Utah was one of those when we were down there where it was like, hey, if Utah comes in and offers a Texas kid, it's kind of interesting. And then who in state do you think, because TCU used to be that one where TCU would reach out an early offer on a guy a lot of times from, you know, small town Texas, and you'd say, okay, you know, they've got a good eye or a good ability to find these guys before anybody else. Who in state is also doing a good job of maybe being first to some of these offers that people should track?
Well, I've been following Arizona State really closely and who they offer because, one, they do a pretty good job of valuation, and two, they go early on the offers. They don't wait around to see, you know, 3 or 4 other schools offer. They're not afraid to pull the trigger and go ahead and be the first offer. UTSA, I mean, this year it's a little bit different, and last year it was a little bit different because they just didn't take as many guys, offer as many guys. But Jeff Traylor, because of his Texas ties and all of his, you know, connections in the Texas high school football coaching world, always gets the drop on, you know, some top talent. Joey McGuire and Texas Tech are doing a heck of a job, but their thing has evolved in such a way now that they can go out and recruit a little bit more nationally. Now, their class is made up with largely Texas high school football players. They have 17 commits, I believe, in that top 500 I mentioned, second to TCU for the most. TCU had 18. But yeah, it's just kind of, you know how it is, Kevin, like when Gary Patterson used to offer an East Texas guy,
yep,
I paid attention to that because like they were making a living off of these defensive backs who were flying under the radar out in East Texas, or really a lot of defensive players. So it's really cyclical on who that's going to be based on like which coach comes in. But Kansas State, Arizona State, Utah to a lesser extent. Now they're so specific, like they're coming in and getting certain guys. But I mean, I even look at USC now because when USC and Oregon come to Texas, they're coming to try to get a guy that they're going to have to pay, right? They're going to have to pay this guy to leave the state or leave the area. And they're not just going to come down here and recruit somebody and back that person unless it's like a big time player. Ohio State is another one, but they just don't they're not recruiting Texas like they were at like 3 years ago. Now they
like
get some marquee guys. Yeah. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Yeah. I mean, they're not as heavy in Texas as they used to be. In Alabama, the same. So you're trying to find those other teams that come in. I would say that North Carolina did a pretty good job this year with Bill Belichick. They found some sleepers.
Getting back, and I know we'll get into a handful of your favorites from K-State, but something interesting about K-State's this class in general, staying kind of along the topic we were just on, is Kevin and I know this is because you'll have maybe a kid that commits elsewhere out of the state of Kansas, and immediately maybe the writer or somebody that covers that beat will say, I didn't see K-State or KU offer, like, what's the story here? And when I start to look at Tucker Ashford and Justin Morales, Miles Tedecki, Keegan Collins, H.D. Davis, Tanner West, one thing that they all have in common here that, at least to me, might be a little concerning, but you are going to be the answer here, is none of them had all 3 Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU offer, or even let's throw in a Houston. Maybe they had 1, maybe they had 2. Should that be a concern, or in today's day and age, is that maybe not as alarming to those of us that are outside the state of Texas that you don't have every single one of those offers?
I would be alarmed if I didn't look at that list and know. I mean, I think I've seen everybody that we're going to talk about tonight in person, except for maybe one player with my own two eyes. So if I looked at that list and I thought, wow, man, that might be a risky take. And there are some guys here that are developmental guys, right? So I look at some of them and think that they could have a high ceiling. And there are some low floor takes too. So, when I look at that list, I don't get overly concerned. And that's kind of how I look at it for Kansas State. There isn't a guy on there, and I'll use Wolf City's H.D. Davis as my example because, he's playing for a 2A school in Texas. It's off the beaten path. Not a lot of people are going to go out there and find a player like him. And I think they've recruited him, at least when I spoke with him last, they had recruited him to play running back. But he offers a tremendously high upside if he flips over to defense as well. So I really like his fit from a roster flexibility standpoint. If the running back room gets really crowded and they have a lot of talent, I think H.D. Davis is the type of kid that would be more than willing to embrace flipping over and playing on the other side of the ball to help the team out. I don't think he's really too concerned about that kind of stuff. And he has a very high ceiling for development. Now, you preface all that, he plays for a 2A school in Texas, not a very big school. So there's going to be a learning curve there for him, not only from the speed of the game standpoint, but picking up, how to fit in with a college football team. It's going to be drastically different than anything he's ever experienced. And those are the questions I have about some of those guys. As we've been covering this for so long, it's usually not about talent, right? A lot of these guys are very talented, but they don't fit in with the culture. And it's hard when you go off to college. Now I have two sons that have graduated from college and kind of lived through it myself. There are things that throw them curveballs that's outside of like school. It's life, right? You're dealing with life, and these guys are getting into a college program and having to adjust. And there's a lot of demands on those guys. So those are my questions about some of those guys as they transition to college. But you're not going to pop on H.D. Davis's tape and not be wowed by it, because this is a dude who's dominating, the small school kids in Texas.
Everybody wants to know about quarterbacks. And you talked about, we've been doing this a long time. Historically, it's a pretty good bet to take a look at a guy who's putting up big numbers at some of those Austin area schools. What do you think of Miles Teodecki in Kansas, reaching out at and heading into the Lone Star State to get their quarterback in this class?
I've been very high on him from the jump. I got a chance to watch him play in the state championship game last year, and he's a crafty lefty is how I would explain it, but he's sneaky athletic, really good head on his shoulders. He's very efficient in the passing game. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't put the ball in a lot of bad spots where defenses can make a play on it and turn the ball over. And he's wearing a state championship ring, and that says a lot to me. I have him rated as the number 4 quarterback in Texas, and he's been entrenched in that spot since the first time I dropped those quarterback rankings over a year ago. So he really hasn't fell off for me. There hasn't been anybody that's come up to kind of like grab that position from him. I really like his upside. He's the number 79 player in our Hot 100, 6'2", 205, 210 pounds. And I think that he's one of these guys that Kansas State coaches has made a living off of developing into, where did this guy come from, right? And there may be people saying that because, let's call it like it is, when a guy commits to Kansas State, he's not going to drum up a lot of interest from the national recruiting sites to go back in and re-eval him or take a second look at him. Sometimes they're going to see what he is, and that's kind of where he's going to be in the rankings. But if you know ball in Texas, Miles Teodecki has been a proven winner. He plays with a chip on his shoulder, and he's gutsy. And I love that in a quarterback. Now, left-handed can throw you off sometimes when you're watching the tape, but he's a gutsy quarterback, and he doesn't make mistakes.
When you look at K-State and the industry composite rankings of the Texas guys, it's Tucker Ashford at number 1. For my money, the number 2 guy, according to the industry, is not only, I think, number 1 in terms of just the Texans. He might be my favorite and number 1 guy in this class, and that's Justin Morales. There's something about this guy, Greg, that is just nasty, mean, very complete. Should the buzz be as high right now around Justin Morales as it seems to be around Wildcat Nation?
Well, I have him 1, Tiadeki, because of the quarterback value. That's for me. And then 2 in my rankings is Justin Morales. And I'll be honest with you, he was somebody who I didn't know about very early on in the process, but I watched his tape for about 10 seconds and thought, wow, I found somebody, right? And there were some schools on him already, but he is exactly what you explained. He's nasty up front. He plays with a bit of bully behind his game. And I didn't know at the time when I was watching him, because he's playing left tackle or playing tackle almost all the time. I thought, well, can he center snap? Because this dude looks like the prototypical center to me. And that's one of the things that's really tough in the scouting industry, is to try to determine, can they slide inside, or how will they be when they slide inside? Generally, it's an easier transition for them, but center is like a different beast, right? You're the quarterback of the offensive line, so it takes a special character and it takes a special quality to be able to pull that off. But he's definitely athletic enough, and his tape is awesome. I really love him. Like, he's got some defensive line tape too, so he'll flip over and play on the defensive line, which shows off his quickness and his footwork. And to me, that says a lot as well, because it's really tough to go over there and play defensive end as a big dude and be able to have the hip flexibility to bend the corner. And he has that. So I really love Justin Morales. And I agree with you, Ryan. This is a dude that Kansas State fans should be really, really fired up to get. And I'm going to say it because I'm sitting in Texas. I can't believe this dude's leaving Texas, right? So this is a steal for Kansas State. I know Kansas State coaches probably don't want me to say that, but I can't believe this dude's leaving the state borders. I mean, this is a tremendous get for Kansas State. And if anything, he could, like, I think it's pretty close between those two for me. I love Tucker Ashford, though, too. I do like him a lot.
Maybe the most underrated guy in Kansas's class, from a rating standpoint, where the industry kind of has him, is Joseph Credit. I mean, you turn on the tape, guy is sideline to sideline. He's explosive. Well, what do you see from Credit? I know he's a guy that kind of checks a lot of your boxes as well.
He's a new age style of defender, and he can do a lot of different things on defense. And talking to people in the know about him down here, one of his linebacker trains a tremendously great group of linebackers. He's got 10 or 15 guys that are like all studs of studs, right? And I think that he would be quick to tell you as well that Credit may have the most upside out of any linebacker in this class. And that's because of his versatility. He's not just a one-trick pony. There are a lot of these guys that are playing linebacker that are going to be just like true downhill linebackers, or guys that are just going to come down and attack the run. But Credit is a guy that gets out to the flats extremely well. He has a nose for the football. He's a turnover machine, whether he can get back into coverage or, chase down a fumble or force a fumble. And I really love that about his game. He's extremely versatile. And this is one of the true steals that's going out of state to me, out of any school. I have him, I think I had him 7th in my outside linebacker rankings. And I think if he was a little bit taller, that would be something that helps boost his profile from a recruiting standpoint, especially on the national recruiting sites. As we all know, they're kind of projecting guys to go to the league, right, when they do their rankings. I'm not really doing that when I do mine. And we do 5 stars every year, and then we do 45 after that 4 stars. And then the rest of the top 350 are probably all going to be 3-star type of guys. So sometimes I'm a little bit more stingy with the 4 stars and that kind of stuff, but Credit is one of those guys who I fully expect to develop into a potential all-conference type of player. I think he's the type of guy that Kansas has to fight to keep on their roster after he sees the field there, and that's exactly the guys you want.
Joseph Credit, too, and KU fans are going to love this, but, I talked about all the guys on the K-State side of things that did not have, the Baylor, the Houston. Joseph Credit, Baylor offer, Houston offer, TCU offer, Texas Tech offer, and to Greg's credit, Arizona State offer. So of the 8 guys that we were talking about tonight, when you look at both commitment classes, Joseph Credit is the one that had them all. So, and maybe that kind of segues in. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, Greg, but
let's go.
If you had to kind of plant your flag on one of these guys panning out, and, we're not saying all-American career, but just a guy that you're the most confident is going to kind of live up to either wearing the Jayhawk uniform, wearing a K-State uniform, and having a successful career, which one would you say right now you're the most confident in?
Well, Justin Morales is the guy on tape who I like the most, but he's the one guy I haven't seen in person. So I am hesitant to put that stamp on him because I value that in-person evaluation more than anything else, because sometimes the tape doesn't match what you see on the field and vice versa, right? You really kind of have, I'm a big believer in that. So that's why I try to travel and see as many of these players as possible, try to go to as many games and practices as possible so I could see what they look like. I think Keegan Collins is probably a really safe bet, but don't be shocked. This is my sleeper. Don't be shocked if Tanner West is that guy. Ooh. You know, Tanner West is one of these. He's so fun to watch. He can do a little bit of everything. He's a jack of all trades on offense. He doesn't really have one true position to me. I've rated him as an athlete. He could be a running back. He could be a slot receiver. I just think he's going to be one that probably hits, and he probably starts, and he probably is a big contributor on the team, you know, very early on in his career, and could develop into a known name. Sometimes these guys up front, you know, fans don't know their names as much unless they're missing a block or like pancaking somebody. But Tanner West, I think, is going to get his hands on a lot of footballs in Kansas State's offense.
You talked about some of these guys potentially being low floor guys. One guy that I'm not sure the ceiling is quite as high on, but I think is a really high floor guy is Corbin Glasgow because of what he can give you in the return game. What have you seen from him?
Well, I've known Corbin for a really long time, and they've gotten out of the gates a little bit slow throwing the rock this year. I think that they only have a couple, 2 or 3 receivers just cracking over the 100-yard receiving mark, but you touched nail on the head right there. He's one of the state's most dangerous return guys. He's always been really good, and he was banged up last year. He didn't play a whole lot of football last year due to an injury, so he's one of those guys that people have tended to forget about in the recruiting process, but he's been committed to Kansas for such a long time too that probably Jayhawks fans also overlook him at times. So I'm really excited more, Kevin, to see the rest of this season and how it plays out for Glasgow. They're breaking in a new quarterback this year who's a junior. Denton Geyer is a machine, right? They've been producing a lot of talent year over year, especially at the quarterback position, but also wide receivers. They do a really good job in their offense of teaching these guys the ropes. And Corbin, I think, is a straight slot return guy whenever he gets into college. He doesn't drop the ball a lot, and he can make guys miss in the phone booth. He's another one that I'm really excited to see more of. I wish I could give you a little bit stronger evaluation on how he runs his routes and that stuff, but due to his injury last year and just not having an opportunity to get his hands on the ball a lot this year, because he didn't do all the camps and stuff really either this season because of that. So, he's just a guy that I'll check back in with you guys at the end of the season and give you my true thoughts on Glasgow, but I stamped him as a 3-star about 2 years ago, and I feel good about that.
Oh, I'll finish with this one for me, Greg, and it's let me long-winded get there, but I have a tendency to do that. With Houston and the way that Willie Fritz is building, SMU and the way that Rhett Lashley is building, the beyond the Texas and the Texas A&Ms, like there's a lot of it's tough to recruit the state of Texas right now because of where a lot of these brands are in the Power 4 and even outside the Power 4 in the G5. But yet at the same time, it feels like K-State and KU, both of these brands are now a little bit more recognizable, especially with KU and what Lance Leipold has done. Regionally, these brands hold a little bit of something. Knowing kind of going back to what you said about Texas has got to take dudes now. A&M's got to take dudes. Even though that's more competitive with Houston rising up and Baylor, and TCU still being there, Texas Tech rising up, is it still now as good a time as ever for K-State and KU to get into Texas and maybe get some more of these steals?
It's the best time ever, and this is my reasoning why. Texas is afforded the luxury of year-round football. Weather's always pretty nice in all the areas where they can go out and train. We also have, I feel like, developed off the field the best trainers, right? And year-round training is something that's very nuanced, especially when you're looking at defensive backs, wide receivers, linebackers, and now even offensive and defensive linemen here are getting that a lot. Every position, all these guys have a personal trainer now, right? And so I would, Kevin, and you can kind of attest to this. You were always like one of my buddies that I talked to about how we dive into the rankings process and talking numbers and that kind of stuff, right? Like it used to be 30 receivers in Texas, about 30 receivers every year. These were the guys. Well, now it's 80. And number 80 could be as good as number 50, but none of those guys are going to go anywhere. But they're at the same training groups. They're training with each other, and you're not really going to see a huge line of demarcation between number and 50 and number 80. And when I ran a college scouting service for about 5 years, we would put them in groups and then let the colleges decide. When you're doing recruiting rankings online, you got to put them in numerical order. It makes it a little bit tougher on you. But I don't see a line of demarcation between 50 and 80. So when a school offers 80, I'm not surprised by that so much. And I'm even really now on this tangent when it comes to talking about recruiting. I think now is the time. If you're a Kansas fan, if you're a Kansas State fan, now is the time to be excited about recruiting again. And that's because of the multi-year deals that are being signed in NIL. You're not going to see as many transfers, and the door is wide open now for some of these great elite players. The guys that used to go to TCU and Texas, Texas used to sign 25 or 30 guys. So those back 15 guys, they're all going somewhere else. They're going to Arizona State. They're going to Kansas State. They're going to Utah. Pitt's got 7 commits in Texas this year. Yeah. So now is the time. I'm telling all my college football buddies, like now's the time you need to be excited and reinvigorated about this again, because it's going to kind of go back to the old days. Because when you get a commitment now, it's very less likely that they're going to flip unless a coaching change happens. Because when they're on their official visit in the spring, they're inking paper or they're getting locked into a deal, which makes it a little bit tougher to maneuver within the recruiting process. So when they get a commitment, it actually truly means something again, where we went through that 2 or 3 year time period where it may not mean as much. Mm-hmm. But now it's back to me. Now I feel like you can get a player on your team like a Justin Morales and know that he's going to be there for 2 or 3 years to develop into a stud of studs on the field. And that's why I'm really excited about recruiting again. And that's why I think Texas is like the premier spot. I don't think I would have ever tried to do a top 500 10 years ago. I don't think I could have gotten to 500 players. I think I could have gotten to about 375 or 425, but that 500 mark was really elusive. But now I got to 500 and I'm like, oh, I'm leaving this dude off. There's a dude that got offered from Gerald, Texas, and it's a small town. He's a running back. His name is Kenneth Johnson. He's already rushed for over like 1,200 yards in 5 games. UTEP offered him tonight. It was his first offer. I watched his tape and I was like, dang, you missed one. He should have been in the top 500, but that's how it is, So now I think it's just like the time to come down here, and teams are going to make a living. Coaches are going to make a fortune off of recruiting Texas and building their teams off of Texas talent. There's a team out there right now that's uncommitted, and you could come in and build your roster off of these uncommitted guys right now and be very successful.
Greg, for anyone that wants to see or read your work, how can they follow along? TexasFootball.com, TexasFootball.com/recruiting. We have all the player profiles, all that kind of stuff. But if you're a huge fan of Texas ball, you should buy a subscription. It's one of the cheapest deals in the game. $49.99 gets you all the live coverage all throughout the year on watching games, watching some of the top prospects who may be committed to your teams. And then it gets you a magazine sent right to your door before anybody else gets one. And now with the way print is, it's a little bit tougher to get them in stores. So I always suggest it. And I think that there's a lot of those players that are in there that you can uncover. The Rising magazine, I write that. It comes out in December, and we do 475 recruits in there. And that's where I put out, my top 2028s and 2029s for the first time. And that's always a fun read because it has some of the young guys in there that you will definitely hear about very soon. A wonderful group of people putting the magazine together and the streaming and all of that stuff too behind the scenes. So thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Verbal Commitment Podcast on KCSN. And thanks to all of you for following along. If you enjoyed what you saw or heard, leave us a comment or review, like this video, subscribe here on YouTube, or hit us with a 5-star rating if you're listening on an audio platform. And until next time, we'll see you on the trail, and take care.